What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Your Fielder's Choice broadcast of the Masters. We're covering this wonderful golf weekend, so it'll be really exciting for us. My name's Josh Salway at YFC Sports J South 10 is my Twitter handle, and I'll be providing you with some content for the Masters weekend, right? So I cover golf for our company, Your Fielder's Choice. Yourfielderschoice.com is a website, or we call it YFC. YFC covers a lot of fantasy content, right? We're a small-time DFS provider, covering really all of our sports. I mentioned I cover golf. I cover some EuroLeague basketball, as well as we have folks who are covering baseball season just got kicked off. We're already off to a hot start there, wrapping up NBA and NHL that were great. College basketball was a very profitable sport for us. And come check out the website, join us. We're on Discord. And you get a premium access to us, and you get some good quality content. You also can get some one-on-one time with our coaches. And that helps you with, building your lineups. If you have any questions, anything where you want to just run by, hey, what do you think about this guy? Or hey, what do you think about this lineup? Right. We're here for you, right? We're here to provide that for you. That's what we like to do. So so with that, I'll get right into talking a little bit about the actual tournament we're talking about, right? The Masters. So if you found this video, you're probably already familiar with the hype that surrounds this tournament, right? One of the biggest ones of the year. And I'm personally really excited for it. We got a little twist with some of the live guys coming in, getting to play in this tournament while they can't play in any other PGA Tour event. So I think there'll be some added tension, some added excitement from that, right? So you got quite a few live guys that want to come in and prove that they can still play, and you have quite a few of these PGA guys that want to defend the PGA, if you will. So I think that could lead to quite a bit of fun for us. So, most of us are familiar with Augusta National, right, in Georgia. That's where the tournament's played. Pretty windy or pretty hilly, winding course, a little bit on the lengthier side, playing over 7,500 yards. They made a few changes here and there over the last couple years, so they've added a little bit of length. Nothing that I think is going to be vastly changing in terms of how the players are going to have to play some of these holes, but they have made it a little bit longer. I think one thing to note, it looks like the weather is going to be not too friendly this weekend, right? Thursday, round one, looks like it may be okay, but I know there's a pretty big radar with a lot of rain looking like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the potential delays, potential downpours, so obviously could lead to a little bit of sloppy play. So we may see, a lower score win the tournament, maybe something closer to the, 10 under that won the last couple years rather than maybe the 20 under, I think when Dustin won a few years back. But we'll have to keep an eye on the weather every day and see what that's going to do to the course. One of the other things, I'll talk about course history quite a bit. I think it's pretty valuable here, more than most courses, right? The Masters is a course that's tough to tackle. So having experience trying to do it, having some history on the course is pretty valuable this weekend, in recent form. So one stat I found really interesting was since 2000, so in 22 tournaments, 16 of the 22 winners were ranked top 12 in the world when they won this tournament, right? So this is not for the faint of heart. You're not going to have a ton of underdogs come out and win. Doesn't mean they won't compete. Doesn't mean they're not good from a DFS perspective. But the best golfers in the world, they typically play to win here, and they do, right? There's a lot riding on the line. This is a major. This is for a green jacket. You got guys like Rory McIlroy. This is the only major he's missing for the career Grand Slam. So I really do expect these top guys to prevail. And with the weather, right? If it becomes harder, tougher conditions, the better golfers shine. That's just the nature of the game. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. And one note around recent form, right? We got live guys in the field. I want to say there's 10 plus maybe live guys. We'll look at some stats, but it'll be a little bit harder to judge the recent form, right? They played so much less golf than the guys on tour, right? They played, I think, 3 tournaments so far this year. They're on easier courses. They're not playing as tough of competition. So yeah, we have some experience from some of the guys. We can take that into account, and we'll look at a little bit of them. But I think there's a little bit of a risk reward type vibe with playing some of our live guys. But we'll look in and we'll see how it looks. So before we jump into the players, we'll talk a little bit about what's important here, right? So iron play, as all courses, is always the most important. Even more emphasis here, right? This is a tough course, so finding greens and regulations and giving yourself a birdie chance, but for sure making sure you can two putt your way to pars is going to be pretty valuable at this course. So we'll look at strokes gained approach and weigh that pretty heavy. We'll also weigh strokes gained off the tee, right? So if guys are able to hit good shots off the tee, find fairways, get some accuracy and some distance, and combine all that to gain a competitive advantage on the field, that's going to be pretty valuable. So we'll weigh that as well. And then another thing we'll look at is short game, right? And that's basically a combination of gaining strokes with the putter and gaining strokes around the green, right? Chipping. If the weather comes into play, this may become a chipping and putting contest, right? Guys may not be finding a lot of greens in regulation. So it's going to be about getting up and down, saving pars, and really just surviving the course in a sense. So yeah, we'll look at both of those. And something I don't typically look at, but I've slightly weighted this week, is driving distance, right? So as I mentioned, Augusta's over 7,500 yards. So it is a little bit on the longer side. And guys aren't going to be able to take driver out of their hand too often, right? They're not, it's not like some courses we've seen where they can, hit a long iron or maybe a wood. These guys don't want to hit their drivers because you really do need distance to give yourself a 7 iron coming in versus a 5 iron coming in with that second shot. So I'll look at driving distance as well. And then lastly, kind of keep an eye on par 4 scoring. So it's a standard par 72 course, right? 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s, and 10 par 4s. But the par 4s obviously come in a little bit easier. I think Scheffler, when he won at 10 under last year, I think he was like 9 under on the par 5. So that's where a lot of the scoring gets done. So it's just about managing the par 4s, right? So we want guys who can at least make par on those holes and give themselves a chance to get some lower scores on the other holes. So yeah, I think with that, we'll jump right into the players, talk a little bit about, what we're looking at. I've broken them down into tiers. So that's something that we can kind of talk through some of the guys that I like, some of the guys I don't like, and what the reasons are for that. So yeah, we'll go ahead and start with the top plays, right? These are the high price plays. So obviously your big three: Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy. The first thing I want to say is you're not going to be wrong if you play any three of these guys, right? They're all valid to play. Scotty won this last year, so he's defending champ. It's kind of interesting. So no defending champ has won at the Masters since Tiger Woods did it almost 20 years ago. And even more interesting, in the last 15 years, only one time has a defending champ even finished inside the top 10 the next year. So for some reason, defending champs just don't come and contend here the next year. Scotty Scheffler is an absolute beast. So do not be surprised if he just shatters that trend and is, in the final group on Sunday or anything like that. But just a tidbit I thought I'd share. But yeah, with Scotty, right, you're talking about the guy who's number 1 in strokes gained off the tee this season, number 2 in par 4 scoring, number 6 with his irons and strokes gained approach. He's 19th in driving distance, 24th around the green. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's dominant in all facets of the game, right? He's the number 1 ranked player in the world for a reason. I guess if you're looking for one knock, his putting, he's been losing strokes a little bit with his putting lately. If you watch the match play, I think he had like 2 less than 5 foot putts that he could have put away Burns in the semis. He missed them. So yeah, if you're looking for some reason to convince yourself not to play Scotty, yeah, maybe some of these makeable putts that he hasn't been making is something you'd want to look at. Jon Rahm, right? So Rahm's interesting. I think Rahm goes the lowest owned of these top 3 guys in most tournaments, and I think that's due to recent form, right? He had to withdraw from the Players. He had I think a 39th place finish. Didn't get out of his group in match play. Granted, it was a tough group, but Rahm's definitely not coming in playing his best golf. But I don't know that will matter. I think it's a good leverage play if you're going from like a GPP perspective. Jon Rahm's 4th in the world with his irons. He's 6th in par 4 scoring, 6th in driving distance, 24th strokes gained off the tee, 12th in putting, 17. I mean, he is a top 25, top 30 guy in every single category that we're looking at. So really just from a straight to statistical standpoint, Rom pops, right? But, history. So he's got 4 top 10 finishes so far here, and he hadn't really flirted too close to a win. But yeah, I think Rom's viable. I think you play him more as a one-off maybe in GPP, because I don't think he'll be super high owned. And then last of that grouping is Rory, right? Rory, and that's my pick of these 3, right? I'm pretty high on Rory. There's the motivation factor of, it's the only major he doesn't have, so he needs it for the career Grand Slam. He's never won here. He's been, in the last 9 years, he's had a top 10 7 of 9 times. I mean, he's dominant here. He hasn't got a win, but he's dominant. He plays well. He shows up. And then on top of that, this will be the first tournament that we really get to see Rory against all the live guys. And if you guys have followed golf, Rory has been a pretty big animate of anti-live golf. So I think Rory's going to want to come out and win and put on a show. So yeah, I like Rory. He hits the ball further than anyone on tour. He's number 1 in driving distance, 6th in stroke gains off the tee, 7th in stroke gain approach. So yeah, he's been playing well. And more importantly, his putting has been much improved over the last couple of tournaments. He had a 2nd place a few weeks ago, finished 3rd in the match play. So I think Rory's starting to play well at the right time. And I think he's got more motivation probably than anyone to come and get a win here. Cam Smith, I won't say too much about. So he's coming off of, he's one of our guys who went to live, obviously plays really well in majors, has some good history. He's got, he's been in the top 5 3 times here in the last 6 years. I have no issue playing him. My worry, like I said, is just how much competitive golf has he played so far this year. He's priced up there, 4th highest. I will probably have a little bit of Cam Smith in a few lines, but I probably won't play a whole lot of him. I wouldn't consider him for cash games. I just think there's guys that have played more golf and played more competitive golf recently that I'd look at. Guys like Jordan Spieth and Patrick Cantlay, right, the next 2 on this list. So Spieth has been playing a little bit better, and there's probably nobody who's been better at the Masters than Spieth in the last 6-7 years. So I think he won, and then he's had 2 runner-up finishes, and he also has 2 third-place finishes. In the last eight or so years. So we're talking about just dominant Masters performance, right? And Spieth is playing a little bit better as of late. He started off the year a little bit slower, but he's been coming in playing pretty well. He's had a couple of top 10s recently, and he likes playing here. So I wouldn't worry too much about some of the stats that pop out that say, oh, well, he's 40th in strokes gained approach versus some of these other top guys. I don't know that I concern myself too much with just the dominant Spieth has had here. And then you go to Cantlay, right? And that's almost the exact opposite. Patrick Cantlay, probably a top 5 golfer in the world right now, but yet to break through at a major. And this could be the one, right? I mean, in terms of skill set, Cantlay is just as good as anybody else who's out there on that course, right? He's number 1 in par 4 scoring, number 2 in strokes gained off the tee, 22nd in driving distance, and he's in the 40s in approach and putting, right? So complete golfer with a complete game. He's played here 7 times, so he's played plenty. His 9th and 17th are his best finishes. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him come out and make a run at it this year. He's good enough, and he's won some tournaments outside of majors that I think give him the experience he needs. So I think Patrick is a fine play here. I do want to note, I do think Jordan Spieth will be a little bit higher owned in a lot of our cash and single entry games. So if you're into ownership, something that you might take into account. Sorry, guys. Justin Thomas, right? He comes in right below. Justin's someone who I don't know how much I'll have of Justin, right? It just something off. He hadn't been able to put everything together yet this year. So he'll probably come win. But yeah, based on what we've seen, recent form and things like that, I have a hard time getting behind him for, being the 6th, 7th highest priced player. Max Homa runs along those lines of Cantlay, right? Being a guy who has won some big tournaments, but has yet to win a major and really hasn't showed up in majors, right? 3 times he's played here, he missed the cut twice, and he finished 48th. I think Max Homa is going to fly way under the radar in this 9K range, but everything about his game says he should be good here, right? I mean, he's, 4th in par 4 scoring, 5th in strokes gained approach, 10th, and he's the 10th best putter on tour. I mean, this guy's got some stats. He's got no flaws to his game. And he's playing really well right now, right? I mean, he's had some wins. He had some runner-up finishes against Rahm. And, I think Max is a really nice play if you're trying to get off some of the chalk. And if you think he finally does break through at a major, and I don't see why he can't here. So the last 2 guys rounding out our 9K range, we have Colin Morikawa and Xander Schauffele. Both are interesting to me. I don't know that I say, hey, go put these guys in your cash plays. They're great plays. Colin, I have a little bit of a worry with Colin with his he's not a great driver. He's not great. He doesn't hit the ball very far, and he's really not a good putter. And his chipping is always a little bit questionable. Now he's accurate off the tee, and he's one of the best approach players in the world. I think he's 2nd in strokes gained approach. So if he can get it close enough and get it on the green, then that's when you see Colin Morikawa win tournaments. That's when you see a lot of top 5s from Colin. My fear is with the weather, right? If the weather is not kind and he is not able to get on the green in regulation, I don't know how well he will do chipping and putting his way to contention. So just something to kind of think about with Colin. And then with Xander, right? I think Xander's another guy that just kind of is always around the top 10 and never really wins, but is always right there. And so he gets a little bit overlooked. But Xander's finished 2nd and 3rd here before. So, I mean, he has been there on Sundays. He has been right there before. And so I don't have any issues playing him. He's a guy who has really struggled off of the tee, but everything else he's been elite as usual. And I think his off the tee game will come back and will improve. It just depends if you think it'll be this weekend or not, right? I think I'll have some Xander, but I don't know that he would be one of my cash plays. So, all right, let's move on to some mid-range, right? And so you see here, I'm not going to list every player in the field, but I list a couple guys I like, highlighted some of the guys that I'm higher on, and talk through some of the more interesting options. So the top of the list, Tony Finau. I'm actually surprised that Tony Finau's under 9K. I don't think I've seen that in a long time. And Tony Finau's a guy in 8 tournaments this year. His worst finish is 24th. I mean, he's finished in the top 20 all times but one when he finished 24th, and he's got like 4 or 5 top 10s. The floor is extremely high for Tony, right? He just is consistent. I think Tony's another guy who has a bad rep. People still think of him as someone who can't win, although he's won quite a few tournaments, just not big ones. He always, if you guys watch Full Swing, then you get it, right? Everyone always has a knock on Tony. Well, he can't win the big one. Well, Tony Finau's played here 5 times. He hasn't missed a cut, and he's been top 10 3 times. 3 out of 5 times he's been in the top 10, right? So I have a hard time saying, can he get it done? I think Tony can win. I don't think there's any reason he can't win from a straight skill set perspective. I mean, this guy is, the 3rd best iron player. He's 3rd in strokes gained approach. He's 6th in par 4 scoring. He's 23rd in stroke gained putting, 25th in strokes gained off the tee. I mean, he's a complete player. And obviously if he comes out and he puts it all together, 8,900 is pretty cheap. So I'm very high on Tony Finau this week. Dustin Johnson at 8,800, another live guy, right? So he's the 2nd priciest live guy. If you want to go that route, I probably would lean Dustin over Cam just for cost savings. I mean, it's $1,000 cheaper to come play DJ, a guy who has ridiculous history here, right? I mean, I think it was 5 years at one point from like 2016 to 2020, had 5 straight top 10s, 5 years in a row. And he came out and was 12th here last year. So, I mean, this is a guy with a ton of course history. I think he gets a little bit forgotten about, but when he went to live last year, he was the best player on the tour. He won their competition they have there. So, yeah, if you want to play live guy, if you want to, go that route, I think DJ is pretty reasonably priced for a guy who's been so dominant at this course. Jason Day's another guy I think will be a pretty popular play. He's definitely fully back, right? He's a Jason Day that we used to see. So you're talking about a guy who's played here a ton. He's played here 12 times. He's got 3 top 5 finishes. So experience history is there. And he's playing pretty crazy right now, right? He's 4th in par 4 scoring, 22nd in strokes gained approach, 15th putting, 23rd around the green, 37th off the tee. I mean, he's gaining a lot of strokes on the field in every facet of his game. And that's why he keeps finishing in the top 10. And I keep talking about him in all my articles and videos that we put out. So I think Jason's a great play this week. Cameron Young, one thing I'll say about Cam Young is I know people are going to be excited. He just finished second in the match play, but he played here last year in his first year. He missed the cut. I'm not real high on Cam. And the biggest fear is he's very bad around the green. His short game is bad. I think he's almost near dead last in putting. He's losing strokes around the green when he's chipping. And, as I mentioned, this is a tougher course. If weather comes into play, I don't know that I could pay this price for Cam Young, especially when someone like Victor Hovland is right there below him, right? Some people say, there's the same knock on Victor. Victor also is not great chipping, but Victor is a much better putter than Cam Young. And I think Victor's been working on his chipping game. And the rest of what Victor brings, right? I mean, he's 8th in strokes gained off the tee, 42nd in distance. So he hits the ball long. He hits the ball consistently. He's a great ball striker. 29th in strokes gained approach. He's 13th in par 4 scoring. I like Victor this week. I think people shy away from him because of that chipping putting concern, but I think it's a little overblown. So I think Victor's a good play this week. Matsuyama's a little bit interesting, right? He came out and had a pretty good finish last week after some injury concerns. So I really put him here because I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think if you are worried about injury or anything like that, I don't think you need to with him, right? He's got 7 top 20s in his career here. He plays pretty consistent. I think his price is pretty fair, pretty reasonable. So if you guys are on Hideki, I think there's no concerns with back, neck, anything like that. So he should be good to roll. And Sungjae Im's another guy that I really like, right? Sung just played here 3 years. He missed the cut once, but in his other years, he was second. He finished runner-up, and he finished 8th. Right, that's 2 top 10s and 3 tries for a guy at 8,100. That's pretty great. If you guys follow golf, Sungjae is a guy who plays every tournament. He rarely takes time off, but he actually took last week off to prepare for the Masters. So I think that's interesting because he is a grinder. He's a guy who likes to play every weekend, but just consistent, right? An extremely good ball striker. He's 15th in strokes gained off the tee, 30th around the green. He's, top 60 in most of the other categories. So kind of one of those guys who you don't think of him as elite in any category of his game, but you also say he's well above average in all categories of his game. And I think it plays well here at 8,100. So Sungjae is a good play. Justin Rose. I think the worse the weather gets, the better Justin Rose looks, right? Some of those guys, like those British and Irish guys, man, they're used to wind and rain and sloppy conditions. So Justin Rose looks better and better the worse the weather gets. But he's got, I think he's got 2 runner-up finishes here. Yeah, he's got 9 top 15 finishes, and he's played here a ton, obviously. Twice he was runner-up. So he's been there at the end of the tournaments multiple times, and I think he's good. He's got a win on the tour this year already, and he's been playing really well. So I think at 7,800, I think you're pretty safe there, and it's reasonable to think there's upside. There's top 10 upside there with Justin Rose. So no issues with him. Minwoo Lee's pretty interesting, right? Kind of considered a rookie, but he actually made his debut at the Masters last year and finished 14th in his first time here. So that's something that's a little bit exciting, right? He didn't have a ton of history on the PGA Tour. He was dominating over on the World Tour. So I think Minwoo Lee's interesting. I think his 14th place finish last year is probably what draws me in more than anything else. But yeah, I don't have any issues. It wouldn't surprise me to see him go put up another top 15 again. I think he has the talent to do that. And then the last thing I'll mention here in this range is Corey Connors, right? I think Corey Connors is going to be chalky, and not just because he won last year, but because of his last week, but because of his tournament history, right? The past 3 years, he was 10th and then 8th and then 6th. So follow that trend. He should be 4th this year. But no, really. But 3 top 10s, 3 years in a row. Corey Connors is an excellent ball striker. Just once again, another one of those guys who is just not a great putter, not great around the green. But for some reason, it has not mattered here at Augusta. He has been awesome. I think he's going to be pretty high owned. He's going to be a lot of people's 7K range play to fill out their lines. And he will probably be in a lot of my lineups. He's, obviously he just won. He's playing really well. and he plays well here. And those are all the things that you like to look for. Let's talk a little bit about value. I won't spend as much time here, but I wanted to list some guys and highlight a few. Abraham Answer is interesting. He's coming off a live. He's on the live tour. He hasn't done anything super spectacular, but he's a good golfer, right? And before he left, he was a top 30, top 40 ranked golfer. He's interesting if you're taking a flyer on these live guys. No issues there. Siwoo Kim I like a lot, right? Siwoo is another one of those guys, almost like a Sungjae, who he's not bad in any part of his game. He doesn't, wow you in any part of his game, but he's just well above average at everything he does. It's kind of funny with Siwoo, right? His distance he's 113th in driving distance, so well below average, but he's managed to be 44th in strokes gained off the tee. So what's that mean? He's hitting it pretty accurate. He's given himself a good chance to come into the greens, 28th in strokes gained approach. So a very solid iron player. I like him. He's played here 5 times. He's made the cut all 5 times. I think his highest finish was 12th. No reason he can't, get to that again, if not better. So Siwoo's a nice play here in the low 7K range. Then we get to Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed is interesting. He's actually someone that I like in this tournament, not as a golfer, but I like in this tournament. And that is because the Masters is a grinding and grueling course, and Patrick Reed is a grinding and grueling player. He's not there to make friends. He doesn't really have a ton of friends on the tour. He is going to be locked in, and he is the opposite of what Rory is, in that he is wanting to prove for live. He's wanting to prove for everyone that he can go out there and he can compete. And obviously, really great history here, right? He won. He's a winner here. He has 2 other top 10s. So I think if you get down to that range and you're looking, I think Patrick Reed is good, whether you like him as a golfer or not. I think from a DFS perspective, Patrick Reed's a good play. And then right behind him, another live guy, right? Mito Pereira. So most of us remember his meltdown at the PGA Championship on the 72nd hole, had a lead, double bogeyed, missed the playoff, ended up with 3rd. Well, 3rd place in a major championship at $7,200 in DFS is an absolute steal. So don't let that meltdown scare you away, right? If anything, that's a great learning experience for him. He left for live. I think he's had 2 top 6 finishes in the last 2 live tournaments. So he's actually playing really well over there. This will be his first time at the Masters. So that'd be the only thing to potentially scare you away. But I wouldn't be. I think he's had big tournament, major experience I think he can play well here. And I think he's an interesting play at 7,200. I think he's not going to be real high owned. So I have interest there. Keith Mitchell and Chris Kirk, both of these guys are pretty good plays. It really depends on your preference. Keith Mitchell's a ball striker. He's great off the tee. 7th in strokes gained off the tees, 14th in driving distance. And then you get Chris Kirk, who doesn't hit the ball well off the tee and doesn't drive, but is an extremely good chipper and putter. 12th in strokes gained around the green, 25th putting, 9th in par 4 scoring. So it's kind of opposite ends, pick and choose. With the weather, I lean Chris Kirk, and he's won this year. He's had a couple 3rd place finishes in some pretty big tournaments with some big names. So I think Chris Kirk is a nice play there. Tom Hoge is one of those guys that can pop at any time. He's number 1 in strokes gained approach, so the best iron player, statistically speaking, on tour. So he can pop at any time. I think at 6,900, it's a pretty good value play, and you never know what he can do. He's only played here once. He was 39th, but he's playing well. I don't mind him here. I wanted to highlight a couple of the guys if you really need to go down and punt. So Danny Willett is someone who I actually think will be pretty popular here. He did win in 2016, so he has that experience for him. He's not playing extremely well, but he makes cuts. He in tough fields, he finishes 30th, in the 30s, in the 20s. So at 6,600, if he goes and finishes somewhere in the 20s, you're probably pretty satisfied with that. So no issues with Danny. And another one of those guys, right, British and Irish guys that maybe the weather plays into their favor. Adam Spencer right below him is a Canadian that I have a little bit of interest in. I think he's been playing pretty well this year. He's a pretty solid player with approach and chipping and putting. I think he can be interesting. I believe this is his first start, but yeah, I think for that price, there's no there's no reason if you're not taking a flyer on him there. And then lastly, I mentioned Adrian Meronk. So Meronk's a Polish guy, a guy that I personally like. He almost won in the playoff in his match play with Fina and Kurt Kitayama. So he's played some good golf. It's his first time here. Hasn't played a ton on the PGA Tour, but has found success kind of all over the world where he's played. He's a big dude. I think he's like 6'5", 6'6". He hits the ball pretty well, pretty far. So I'd be interested to see where he finishes. I'll definitely have him in a few lines. I don't know if cash, I'd say, yeah, go grab him. But I do think he is interesting. So yeah, that kind of covers most of our plays that I like. So I think really final thoughts. I'm saying when you build your line, the top guys are cheap enough. If you want to go start a line with Rory and Scotty, or Rahm and Scotty, or Rahm and Rory, you can do that, right? There's some value you can go down and grab. There's 88 players in this field. Probably 14, 15 of those are past champions who are, older, way past competitive golf, and some amateurs that make the field. So those guys, to me, aren't a threat. So you narrow that field down to 75 players, 50 in ties are going to make it. A lot of guys are going to be making these cuts. So you really don't just want, hey, let me get a cheap guy that's going to make the cut. You want a cheap guy that you feel has a little bit of upside, right? Top 20, top 30 type range. So that's where I would go with it, right? I would start there at the top. I don't think you have to grab two guys. I think you can grab one of the top guys and then go pick your favorite 9K range and work your way down. Grab someone in the 8, grab someone a couple down in the 7s. But there's a lot of value, right? I highlighted some of the plays I like, and if you guys jump on our Discord, go to our site, become a premium member, right? I have put out some articles and some information talking about more in depth some of the players that I really like and some core plays. And having some conversations just with some of our members around, hey, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this line? So definitely do that. And before I let you guys go, a couple things for those that are prize picks, prop betting or just, sportsbook betting in general. I think first round bets are probably safe. It looks like the weather should be fine. Maybe a slight advantage for the afternoon guys if it warms up a little bit. So if you're looking at some bets there, or a first round leader, you have some options. I like Jordan Spieth is a guy who seems to always come out and play really, really well in the first round and then slowly tail off. So he's an interesting first round leader bet. You can get some good odds there. And then if you jump in our Discord and some stuff like that, I usually will drop some prize picks bets. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the weather, seeing some of the pairings and some things like that, so we can see what kind of prop bets we have in play. Full tournament wise, you're probably safe to, bet they obviously are going to get the tournament in. But once again, we'll see what the weather does and what the delays do. So we may have to be a little bit patient this weekend. So, all right. Well, that's all I have for you guys. So, thanks for joining. Thanks for checking out the video. Yourfielderschoice.com. If you guys want to come and talk with us, become a, premium member, get some more information, not just on golf, but all our other sports. And and we'll help you guys out. So let's all have a profitable Masters weekend. Thanks, y'all.